We're going to continue our discussion today on fitting irons. Last week we talked about the cast club, how to take a look at an iron to see if it fits our eye, some of the features of the clubs. So I'm going to bring in some other of the Wishon designs. Wishon's designs cover the whole range of iron styles that are current and common today. This obviously is the cast 979 model. It's made out of 431 stainless, very common design, meaning common material, and a common design in a lot of the golf clubs that are sold today are a cast 1731 4 stainless. It's well suited for the majority of golfers' needs out there, but there's some other options that you need to consider. For example, we're going to start to talk about some of the other high-tech offerings and some of the forged clubs that are available to us as well. So this is a cast club. The metal is 431 stainless. There's another option. Our friends at Ping, they are masters at a harder stainless steel material. It's called 174. And Karsten Manufacturing is really the master of that type of steel. You'll notice that the Ping Club head designs have a little cut right back here that helps them to adjust the lie of their clubs. And they also have a fitting system, or a semi-fitting system, where they give you a color code based on the lie. And of course, the lie is either how flat or how upright you need your clubs. And they do that because 17.4 is really hard to bend. 431, relatively easy to bend. Forged clubs, even easier, etc. But again, that 17.4 is a very hard steel, and it requires some dampening inside of the shafts. But you can read up on that as you're interested to do. So that is a stainless cavity back iron head, and very good design. Let me move that aside, and we're going to bring in the first of our forged clubs. Okay, this is Wishon's 575 series. And forged clubs are pounded into shape out of a piece of carbon steel. The carbon steel that Wishon uses is 1035 carbon, and that second number, 35, kind of indicates the softness or hardness of the material. Forged clubs, they're a softer steel, and they're typically plated in a chrome nickel type finish. So there's raw metal under this, and then the chrome is done over the top of these. An interesting development over the last number of years, and I hope you can see this on this club, is the ability to come in and mill the back end and sometimes even the soles of forged irons. And I'm sure that someone's doing it in the cast clubs as well. But that's an interesting concept, because a forged club is typically pounded into shape. 3 to 5 dies are developed, and the carbon steel ingot is just pounded into shape. Just tons and tons of pressure. Aligns the grain differently than a cast club, and a lot of people say that, it just feels softer. The material is a bit softer, and I would say that the material feels a little more dense. I've hit cast clubs that are very good feeling, very soft feeling, and I've hit forged clubs that actually feel kind of hard. These clubs by Wishon are just buttery soft and are made of a great material for a forged blade. So the forged blades, you'll notice they don't have the big cavity back. The perimeter weighting is not there. Most of the weighting is all down low. And it's typically a smaller head, as you can see, if we kind of compare it to the cast club. This forged head is a little bit smaller. And we'll show you some others that are a little bit larger as well. But this is typically considered a player's club. I've had a number of collegiate players, some pros, and some very serious golfers get fit into these clubs. But I have to tell you that you can, as a fledgling golfer, just a recreational guy or girl, you can get into these as well. I had one client that said, look, I want to know exactly where I hit it on the face. I want to feel the center of face impact. If I hit it a little off center, if I hit it a little heel side, a little toe side, a little high, a little low, I want to know. I want to be punished. And so don't think that you have to be so-called good enough to play blades. It's all in preference. And again, they typically have a very nice look to them. Very little offset between the leading edge and the front of the hosel and shaft, and very traditional. And so that's available through the Wishing line. You get these through gap wedge through a 5 iron. And the reason that we stop at 5 is that I'll show you the next iteration of that. And this is, as opposed to the forged blade, this is what we'll classify as a player's cavity. This is a forged club head, but as you can see, you've got some perimeter weighting for the cavity, and you can see some of that milling that takes place to keep the specifications exact. In years past, you would pound these into shape, and then you'd have to start shaving by hand some of the soles and some of the little flashing pieces that are left over, but we've developed the ability to use CNC machining to create the cavities and to kind of help us, keep the center of gravity right where we want it to be. This is a player's club. This is very much in line with a forged blade. This is just a touch larger, but if you take a look at them and, from the player's angle, you really couldn't tell the difference between a blade and a cavity back in the 575 line. So a lot of my clients that get into these typically get their pitching wedge through 8 iron in the blade, and then at the 7, and this is the 7 here, switch over to a cavity back for just a touch more forgiveness. And again, the size of the blade doesn't change that much. It looks like a good flowing set as you take a look through there. So you can get these, down to the attack wedge and all the way up to a 3 iron. And the cavity just gives you a little bit more forgiveness when you're hitting things a little off center. A lot of tour pros use a version of a player's cavity. If you'll take a look at the what's in the bag things, you'll see a lot of blades, and you'll see a good amount of player's cavities with some other occasional interesting things popping up now and again. So that's the 575 line. There's one more forged club head that I want to show you because it is a very popular, very successful iron head. This is the second generation of his 560 line. This is the 565. The 565 is a large, some would even call it game improvement cavity back. You can see by the size of the head and the size of the cavity that it's very forgiving on some off-center hits. It's notably larger than the forged blade or the forged cavity back, but it has the great feel of a forged club. You can see the heavy milling operation that's taken place in the back of the club there as well, and with a pad to keep some weight right behind the hitting area. Doesn't make a big amount of difference. Sometimes they'll put a pad out here and a pad out there, and we'll show you some of those. But these forged clubs, the material is so soft and has such a muted, solid report as you strike it in the middle of the club face that there's a saying that, once you go to a forged club head, you just don't go back. So gorgeous, wonderful, wide range of fitting options. Low, scratch to low handicap players love this type of club. High handicappers, absolutely, get into these things. If you really want to enjoy the feel of impact, get into a good forged club. It's just very satisfying, very traditional looking at address, very low offset. Again, graceful lines and not too big, not too small. As you take a look at your ability to put this club face right on the back of the ball. You've got a good amount of material moved around, a good amount of perimeter weighting. This one has a very small to medium top line. The soles, meaning the how wide they are, they're a little wider than your average blade, just for a little bit more forgiveness. But again, wide range of applications for this club. This is the 565 series of Wishins designs, and good game improvement. Fun.